at me. Yeah, I can't help myself. I had to help myself. 1, 2, 3.
Hello and welcome to another reading vlog. So I have already read one book. Let me tell you about it. So I read A Feather So Black and I have given this 4.25 stars. So this was touted as The Cruel Prince meets For the Wolf with like Celtic stuff interwoven, and I would say I can see why they've chosen those to compare it to. Is it exactly the same? No. But did I enjoy it? Obviously I did. 4.25 is definitely enjoyable. So in this book, you have Fear. Now, Fear is a changeling. So what happened was the queen was battling against the fae, the fair folk, and they came and took 12 girls, one of them being the queen's daughter, the princess. So the queen stopped the war and has since then been trying to get her daughter back. And so what she decided to do was raise this changeling child as a weapon against the folk to retrieve her daughter. During her childhood, this girl, Fear, ended up having a bit of a romance with the real princess's betrothed prince. So the dude that's meant to marry the real princess. And it ended quite badly because the prince was made to choose. And obviously he was like, I can't marry you. You're not a princess. We're not meant to be together. You're not for me. Adios, amigos. And off he went for 4 years. So we've come 4 years now in the future and he's come back. And she's all messed up about it, honestly. So this is a love triangle book. And you know I don't love love triangles. I like just a line, just a straight line. And I would say that the biggest downfall of this book is its repetitiveness, with the back and forth between these two going, oh, I love you and I love you too, but we can't be together. You're right. Oh, but I love you and I love you too, but we can't be together. That's right. It's just Groundhog Day, not in a good way. So if that had been taken out and not forced down our throats so many times, I would have thoroughly enjoyed this book. However, it's a bit Groundhog Day. So basically the premise is they are tasked to go and retrieve the princess who has been cursed to turn into a swan. So the 12 girls turn into swans and then turn back into humans. And they set up camp near one of these fairy gates that they can pass in and out of fairy with. Now the queen, who is quite conniving and reminds the changeling child that no one will ever love her as much as she does, also gives her a side quest, and that is to get the almighty feather sword, for which they will be able to have total domination over both the human and the fae realms. So they both go into fairy, and the princeling, the porridge prince, because that's what he's referred to by some other creatures as a porridge face, and I agree, he is a plain porridge prince. So he goes off with the ladies off to the fairy revels, and she ends up coming across the guardian or the warden of the girls. So we don't quite know, but they have like a standoff. She ends up running for her life. So every day they go there, they have to be back before the next day. Otherwise, I'll be stuck in fairy for a month. And if you eat things in fairy, you're stuck there permanently. So they have to go there for a certain amount of hours and they have to come back through the gate, wait another month, and then go there again on a full moon. So that's how this book also works. They go there for a day, shit happens, stuff goes down, they come back, and then you get the boring back and forth between Porridge Prince and Fear for a month before they go back to fairy. So that was the thing. I was living for the fairy moments, not so much the domestics back in the barn. However, the real thing about this is the relationship between the warden / guardian in the Fae realm and Fear. Like, there is some sizzle, there is some secrecy, some playing of each other. You don't know what their deal is. And I enjoyed that. I really did. I thought it was nice. So it did sucker me in with the relationship there, but I still had to put up with the porridge face. So she was playing both guys at the same time. Like, she was dipping her toe in both ponds. So didn't love that. This book also does have sex. Is it incredible detail sex? No, but it's like there's some sex in this book. There's also, obviously, what comes into play is her relationship with the princess whom she's a changeling for. So they're kind of dynamic. This girl that's mostly been raised now in the Fae realms and not in the human realms. And then obviously her desire to also please the human queen mother, who is an absolute piece of work, So she's going through all of her own trauma and mummy issues and who am I? Where do I belong? Am I human? Am I fae? What's my place in this world? What do I want? You know, that all that shebang. And then you've got the stuff going on in the Fae realms too, because there's a war going on there as well. And the Fae in this are brutal. Like, they all slaughter each other. Children, sure. Old grandmas and grandpas, yeah, you're gonna get your head chopped off as well. So they love messing with each other. So you've got that dynamic happening as well. So it is reminiscent of the Cruel Prince in that way, and especially too with how these humans are fitting in with the Fae world. But yeah, I had a good time. Like I said, I would have loved it more if we'd taken the Porridge Prince relationship woes out of it. That just frustrated me. Like, I get it, but he could have chosen her, but he's like, no, I can't, because I have a duty as a prince, and war, it'll cause a war. But you know, it's just, I hate that trope. I hate that trope. Either choose a woman or fuck right off. Do you know what I mean? Don't come here and mess with her head and play with her heart just to keep, you know, backing off when it's time to make a commitment, bro. I just realized now I have so much on my hair on myself. I apologize if that was annoying anybody. But yeah, there's like a lot of tropes obviously in this. You've got enemies to lovers, you've got friends to lovers, you've got forbidden love, you've got like a feather shadow daddy in this one as well. You've got kind of like the chosen one shtick too with fear, and there's almost a Camelot-y kind of vibe with, you know, the Excalibur sword, the feather sword going on, as well as family dynamics and doing what's best for everybody or what's best for you. There's a whole lot at play. Some people were saying that the Celtic mythology in this wasn't spot on. I'm just not familiar with it enough to know, but I did like learning about all the different fairy beasties as well. But yeah, do I feel the relationship was a little bit rushed with the warden? Yeah, but then it was a long time. Like, they were going in and out of fairy for over a year. Even though she'd only met the guy, like 12 times, I could see why you could form a relationship. It's believable, but yeah, I just wish we hadn't had to go through the other 29 days back in the human lands doing real domestic mundane shit. Like a lot of tending to garden. Oh, I forgot to mention one of the main things, Sophia's powers. She's not just a changeling, she has powers. Basically, she poison ivy. So that's her thing. Like, she's real good with the plants. She does tend to sometimes kill things she loves, you know, she like vines them to death accidentally, so she doesn't have a big grip on her powers. But it's also why her queen mother was like, well, you are a weapon because you're dangerous, you're deadly. But then the Fae realm was like, well, no, you're just powerful, you're badass, you're a green witch bitch. But yeah, that's also part of this. But I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I stayed up to read it, okay? I started it and I didn't put it down. So even with the monotonous parts, I was still able to stay in it and keep going. So it does continue on, of course. Will I continue? Perhaps, I might. I don't feel a big pull to do it. Like, I'm quite satisfied with how this ended, and I like it when books do that, so that you're not obligated to continue on. But I might, depending on what the plot of the next book is. At the moment, it's not up on Goodreads, so I don't know. But yeah, if it's a plot I'm into, I'll keep going. What am I currently reading? So I am currently reading Breakdown by Kathy Sweeney. So this is about a mum that decides she's had enough, and she's noping out. She's getting in a car and she's going. She's not looking back. She's just driving away in her SUV, and she's going to figure it out as she goes. I'm only, how far am I in? Barely, 22 pages in. I'm 22 pages in, but I like the writing style. And it's very easy to read, and it's got short chapters, and my God, I love a short chapter. I really do. There's no pressure then. I can just go, oh, well, I know the chapter's only going to be 3 or 5 pages, and then I can put it down and do my business. So big fan of that. But yeah, so far she's just hit the road, Jack, and she's still driving. So we'll see how this plays out. So it says that, yeah, 48 hours later, she starts to think about her family, modern society, and the signs of a breakdown. Does she return back to her husband and kids? We don't know. We'll find out. I believe when I talked about it in my TBR, I thought it meant she came back 48 hours later, but no. She just arrives at her destination 48 hours later so she can ponder some shit. So I'm reading that. I'm also reading, sorry, I've got so much cat, I'm always, my nose, and I don't have a coke habit. It's cat hair. There's always cat hair on my face because I do plant my face in my cat's bellies and motorboat them. I'm also just picked up, I'm going to have to look at the title because it's a weird title. It's on my e-reader. It's called Pemberley, Mr. Darcy's Dragon. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm 30 pages in. I'm going to give it to 50. At the moment, the style isn't grabbing me. It was a bit info dumpy. In the first chapter, they did the whole, oh, let me tell you a story, children, and then give you the history lesson about the world building. And it's not my favorite style of exposition, you know? I like it interwoven in a way that's not so in your face. So basically this is Pride and Prejudice. You've got Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, but there's dragons in this world. And these dragons sometimes look like little birds or cats, and only some people can hear the dragons. Uther Pendragon was one of the first, and it's up to these humans to keep the peace between humans and dragons. But it's a bit weird because it seems like everybody else who doesn't hear dragons speak just thinks that they're birds and they're cats. They're completely oblivious to the fact there are dragons. So it's a bit confusing in that way. The world building is a bit illogical, I guess. But yeah, thus far we've got news of a fire drake egg being stolen, and it must be retrieved, because if that baby hatches and there ain't no human to imprint on, then you got yourself a nasty fire bee the dragon that wants to eat peoples. And you've got Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth on a quest to find the egg and and avert disaster as we know it. So yeah, I don't know, the voice of Elizabeth's dragon is annoying. She's a bit of an annoying character, and I don't like that. I don't want to find my dragons annoying. That's not the quality I want in a dragon. She's a bit uppity, you know. So I'm giving it another 20 pages, but I'm not invested whatsoever thus far. We'll see how we go. If I decide to put that down, The Lost Library. So this is a middle grade book. It's about a library guarded by an orange cat that changes the lives of some children. There are ghosts involved as well. And I just feel like something a little wholesome, you know, a little easy to read, nothing taxing on the big old noggin. And a book about libraries and cats is just, surely I will enjoy it. So that's my plan. I'll obviously maybe pick another 1 or 2 books for this vlog. I tend to do 4 to 6, I think, for each vlog. Hello, my beautiful Nova. Hello, my beautiful Nova. She's so lovely. She's like, why are you patting me? You're right here. How can I not? I've got myself a little bookie wookie for my book reading journal, because I was just using a plain book and I thought, Chanel, add a little joy into your life. Like, you don't have to just use a plain notebook to jot all your book thoughts down. So this one has just lovely pages, you know, and that makes a big difference to me when it's just like a colorful illustrated page. It's just a bit more food for the eyes, you know, nectar for the soul. Like, I appreciate beautiful things. So I thought this was just sitting on my bookshelf. I was going to use it as a diary, but then I decided, nah. I ended up getting the Midori MD to use as my diary. So I thought, use it as your book tracker, journal space. And that's what I'm doing. Today is Easter, the regular Easter. We more celebrate Greek Easter, which I think is in May this year. And I'm actually hosting, and I haven't hosted any family event since I had my second child because it was just too overwhelming for me, but I'm going to give it a go. But yeah, regular Easter today, and I have my kids coming back in like 10 minutes to do their, you know, the little hunt and spend some time with me. So I'm excited to see the joy in their faces when they find the little treasures that I've placed around. So we do a few little chocolates, but then I get them little things. So it might be a book, it might be a lip balm, other things besides just sugar. But I hope wherever you're having a lovely day if you celebrate Easter. Happy Easter to you. If you don't, sweet, my dudes. And I'll see you once I've read something. Welcome back, guys. So I've read quite a few books this week. Let me tell you about them. So we've got Breakdown. This was by Kathy Sweeney. So this was about a middle-aged mother who has 2 adult children, a husband, is middle class, white, and is fed up with her life. She wants something different. She doesn't want to wash another dish or put her makeup on or talk to any more of her students. She's done. She is at her limit, and she gets in her car and she drives and she keeps on driving and she has no plan, but she just knows that she can't go back to what she was doing. And so she ends up in a little cottage in Wales and obviously is going over her whole life and what it is that she actually wants to do with the rest of it. So with this book, I've given it 4 stars. It is very, very readable. Very readable. With the short chapters, you just fly through it. The main character, I guess what you would say, is not likable, is selfish, because it's the question of, it's like the question of, should you be able to choose at any point in your life to live a different one, to decide, I don't want to do this anymore, I'd rather do this. I think that you as human beings are entitled to do that. It is your life. You should be able to decide how to live it if you have the means to do so. However, is that, I guess, I don't want to say the right thing to do, maybe for you and your own personal journey and lived experience, but for me, I do take into account how my actions affect others. So if I had children and a husband and friends and family, would I feel okay in just taking off without explaining anything to them, without saying goodbyes? No, I would not, because to me that is incredibly self-centered and that's just not my character. But I would say that whilst I wouldn't personally do what this woman did, I don't think that we have any rights to tell other people how to live their lives, even if it's our parents, even if it's our lovers. And like, is that painful and hard if your mother, your lover decides, yeah, I just want to be alone. I don't want to be with you. I don't want to have any of the responsibilities of cohabiting with others. It's heartbreaking and it would affect you, but we're all going to die one day. And if they want to have an different experience in life, then they should be able to do so. But yeah, it means that you will pay the price for that. Everything comes with a cost. And she's decided the cost of basically abandoning everyone is worth this quiet, simple life where she has ties to no one and is responsible for no one. So I did enjoy reading it. Like I said, I don't like her as a character and I don't agree with pretty much all of the choices that she made, but it was a very quiet book. And like I said, it was so easily readable that it was entertaining in its own way. Hello, my darling. Hello, my darling. And she has the means to just go off grid and quit her job because of some things that she did that were probably a bit underhanded, but you know, she can do it. So she's done it and she's living this new life as a new person, totally changes her look, everything, just opts out of pretty much society's standards. I'm a bit brain foggy today, so I can't quite encapsulate everything I want to say, but that's the gist of it. I did enjoy it. Is it a book I'd recommend? I don't know, probably not for most people, unless you enjoy this kind of just lit fic woman having an existential crisis and wanting to become a mountain man pretty much, then this is right up your alley. And then I read The Lost Library, and this is a middle grade book. I would definitely say it skews younger, like 8 years old. And if I was to read it for what it is, I'll probably give it a 4. It's a very heartwarming book. As always, I find with middle grade books, there are like very deep or serious underlying themes. So in this one, the story is about a young boy, an orange cat and some ghosts. So in this town, there was a tragic event in which a library burned down and some people were killed. And it opens up with a sort of historical cottage with some ghosts living there. So there are 3. There is a young woman, the elderly librarian, and a gentleman who is a patron of the library. Mice also play a main character in this. So in this book, you can hear the inner voices of the cat and the mice, so you can understand what they're saying. So anyway, this young boy reads a mystery book by an author with a pseudonym and gets caught up in the sort of event of the burned down library. He wants to find out what really happened, who burned it down because they believed it was arson, and who this mystery author is. So it's definitely a mystery book, I would say, overall. And it's one of those ones that sort of unravels as you go. It doesn't leave the reveal until the end only. It's given to you piecemeal style. And I thought that was well done, how all of these characters' lives were interwoven. As a former librarian, I love anything about libraries and librarians, so that really warmed my heart. There is some sadness. It's a lot about grief, and connection and purpose, I would say, were the main themes of this book. The little kitty cat, obviously, oh, my heart beats for that cat. His name is Mortimer. But I enjoyed it. It was what I needed. I wanted something wholesome. Like I said, it's a very simple book. It is skewed, I'd say, for younger readers, but I still enjoyed it. You know, I enjoyed finding out what was going on in this town and how everything happened, and I loved how it eventuated and how everything wrapped up. And it was touching. So that was The Lost Library. So as you know, I was reading Pemberley, Mr. Darcy's Dragon, and I just have to mention, like, this cover, I don't like it. It does absolutely nothing for me. This book also did absolutely nothing for me. So I did end up DNFing it. It was just boring and dull, and it wasn't exciting, and the addition of the dragons didn't actually do anything didn't add any appeal to the original Pride and Prejudice story. So I think if you're doing a twist on a classic, it has to up it a level, and this did not. So left that one in the dust. I also read Wanted, A Novel for Hire, and yeah, I've given it 3 stars, but I didn't like it. So as I mentioned, the premise for this story is you have a guy who was just a regular old solicitor, and he had a lord for a cousin, and that cousin died. He was killed in a duel because he was banging a Marquess's mistress, Mrs. And then he bequeathed everything to his pauper pedestrian commoner cousin. And unfortunately, it turns out that he was in debt up to here. So poor old Tate doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to rule an earldom. He can't get enough money to keep the estate going. So he's like, well, what's a man to do except find himself a sugar mama? So that is his quest, to find a rich woman to pay off all the debts and keep his estate running. And then you've got Charlotte, who is the richest woman in London because her rich uncle bequeathed everything to her. Now, I'm not super up to my Victorian legal system, but I don't believe in those days, in Regency, era things, that women could be given estate and money in wills. I felt like it always had to go through some sort of male custodian, and I believe that if those women married, then everything would be the husband's property and assets. I'm not quite sure. Please illuminate me if I'm wrong, but I just felt like that was the case. But anyway, in this case, she's the richest woman. She doesn't have to get married. So she's just living her life, even though her parents would like her to settle down. But then I'm like, why? She's richer than the queen. Doesn't matter if she has a husband. But her and her group of spinster gal pals are basically running a Sherlock Holmes club. They're trying to solve murders that are happening in the town that the police force are just too stupid to solve, are just too inept to solve. And this one is targeting women. So she believes, hey, I know I can figure this out. I can find more clues than the police force, and I can find the killer. But lo and behold, in that world, no one wants to talk to a woman. The police won't talk to her. She can't go unchaperoned to these dodgy places. So she decides to put an ad in the paper for an Earl to be her avatar, pretty much. And this guy, looking for money and rich bitches, finds her ad and goes, you know what, that could give me some cash in the meantime, rocks up and is like, yes, I'll definitely do this for you. Well, also he is just completely besotted with her boobies. Like, that is a big thing. He is tantalized by those tartars. And straight away too, she's like, oh, he's hunky. He's quite nice. So there's a lot of lust going on. This is a very fast-paced book. So normally I like the fast pace, but this was just too fast for me. They've got to pump the brakes a bit, my guy. So they go about solving these murders. And so, there's a little mystery at play. It's not particularly clever. It is what it is. It's just a side thing to the love story that's going on. The reason I didn't like this is because of the finance disparity. He is looking for someone rich. She is someone rich. And he starts pressuring her to marry him. It's like, marry me. You know we're a great match. And when she brings up like, can we take it slow? Because look, I am a bit concerned that maybe you might just be into me for my money and not for me, which is a very valid concern. He then makes her feel awful about it. But I'm like, but dude, you are also marrying her for her money. Like, let's be real. So I didn't like that. He just kept pressuring her, and I felt a bit ick about the whole dynamic. You know, I didn't really feel a particular bond with the two of them because it was so fast paced. And he was getting a bit controlling. You know, he was supposed to be going around to the murder scenes, but he's like, you need to stop doing this. This is dangerous. And I think you should stop. So he was kind of telling her what he thought she should be doing. So yeah, it wasn't for me. It's not my style. And like the writing and everything, I won't be continuing on with this author, but it was fine. Like, it's 3 stars. It's okay. It just wasn't what I was hoping it could have been. Like, marriage of conveniences are normally fine tropes, but in this case, didn't like the power imbalance and the pressuring. Then I read The Concierge, and this is about a murder that happens in a hotel. It's told through the concierge's POV, who's just retired, and it's trying to find out who is the killer of this guest. Now, I did not get far into this because the concierge is basically recording himself telling his story for his friend Helen, who's writing the book. So frequently, he addresses her directly, like, oh, sorry about saying that, Helen, but I'm sure you'll forgive me. Or, you know, Helen, you're such a great friend. Or he'll talk about her to the reader. Oh, I'm sure Helen will edit that out. Or I'm sure Helen will figure out a better way to put what I'm trying to say into words. And I just found that very grating, and I fixated on it. It just kept pulling me out of the story every time he mentioned Helen. And I just didn't like the way that this book was set up in that manner. And to be honest, I just wasn't getting drawn into the story either itself. You know, it was, for a murder mystery, it was quite boring. And the main character, I didn't really get along with his personality either. So I did DNF this one. I decided just to read the ending to see how it all played out. And oh man, I'm glad I did not push through. I'll just say that. I was like, I made the right choice. I made the right choice. And then I read A Broken Promise. So this is a fantasy book. I've given this 3 stars. This could have been really, really good. I'm sorry. Everyone's going for a walk outside my window today and I'm getting distracted. So in this book, you have a slave girl named Finn. In this particular world, some people have magic. They call them like creators and things, and they are pretty much hunted down by the general destroyers. What are they called? Destroyer General and his destroyers. So they hunt them down and they kill them. And this woman's, I think her previous village had just been razed to the ground with this fire that these destroyers are able to conjure. So they have magic as well, but no one else is allowed to have magic. And so she's got vengeance on her mind. What I liked was that this was realistic. She was a slave, so she is emaciated, she is malnourished. So when she goes to fight, even though she's got the fight in her and she's trying her best, her attempts are clumsy. They're not really super successful because she's a weak, undernourished slave who's just been barely surviving. But anyway, what happens is one day these creatures, wraith-like creatures, come and they can scent from people's blood whether they have magic. So they come to the slave camp, and lo and behold, she has magic, even though she has been completely unaware of any abilities whatsoever. While they're en route to this place to be, I think, pretty much slaughtered, she's bought for someone. So they yank her out. They're a bit upset that she's not younger. So there's already this pedophilia ickness hanging about. The guard that takes her into the stronghold is like, I'm going to come back later tonight to sexually assault you. So lots of fun times. They clean her up and truss her up. And then lo and behold, he does come back. She does fight. She does maim him. She manages to survive. And then she's gifted the next day to the Destroyer General. And like, props to her, she tries to kill him. She's like, what else have I got going on for me? You know, I'm probably going to be sent to my death. I may as well try to take this SOB out. So she continually fights. She's got great spunk, and I liked her character. You can tell that obviously this Destroyer General is set up to be a love interest. Is there any romance in this book? No. And so it said it's a fantasy romance. There is no romance in this particular one. There is just a whole mass of sexual assaults. So keep that in mind. Anyway, this Destroyer General though ends up killing the guard that tried to SA her, because like, everyone here needs to know, you don't touch what's meant for me, like, hands off. But she ends up outwitting him and escaping, and then she's picked up by this very saucy, promiscuous, foul-mouthed assassin woman who just loves to have her bangers out. She likes to feel the breeze on her boobies. And she's skilled in the art of combat and weaponry and poisons, so she trains Finn up. And the issue I had is the start of this book, part 1, fantastic. Part 3, right towards the end, started getting good again. This whole 2/3 of the book, part 2. My youngest has to always announce to me when she's going to the toilet still, was boring. It was so tedious, and I didn't like it. So you just, with Finn and her friend Priya, who I didn't like. I know she's supposed to be like this feisty, foul-mouthed lesbian who's wealthy beyond her means and who has wicked skills, but the way she was written, it's just like, oh no, she's just arrogant and rude and a bitch. You know, there's like a line. And so I didn't like her. And the way that Finn was in this second part, didn't like that either. They also have introduced a very sexually cavalier Romeo named Florian, who's just sole purpose is to try and bag Finn. And I'm like, yep, these characters are caricatures, and didn't love it. But basically there's rebels at play, and Finn's got to decide, does she stay with her friends? Does she join the rebels? Does she go on her own personal vengeance and try and kill the destroyer herself? There's a big twist at the end, which isn't that much of a twist, but it is a twist, and it tries to leave the book on a cliffhanger, and I will not be continuing. So like I said, this had so much potential, but it just got so messy and lost its tone, and it was just all over the place, and it wasn't enjoyable. And I saw from the reviews a lot of people sort of felt the same. If you didn't like the character Priya, you didn't like the whole middle part of the book. And yeah, it had potential, and like, look, I don't mind when fantasy has a lot of dark themes. Like I said, this is filled with SA, but it's just started to feel like it was just for, once again, shock factor and of a gratuitous nature, and I wasn't into it. So I didn't like it. It could have been done differently, and it could have been amazing, but it just ended up going down like mediocre fantasy, on a mediocre fantasy track, you know. And then at the end, you know, with her interactions with the Destroyer General were just tiresome. You know, it's like, this has been done, this is old, and it's not giving anything. So like I said, the first part of the book was really interesting, the whole setup and getting to know Finn, liked that. Everything else, caca. So I've given it a 3 overall, based on that first part of the book. You don't really learn a lot about the magic in this one either, so the world building for that magic system was weak. I'm guessing maybe they talk about it more in the second book, but it wasn't really in here. And like I said, if you're coming for romance, there's none. There's none. I think a lot of people that gave it low ratings were also very upset about that. They came for like a fantasy romance and they just got raped. So yeah. So yeah, this week was a bit of a mixed baggie, but that's okay. I did find some that I did enjoy, and I sampled quite a diverse array of genres, which I like to do. I've decided that I'm going to do a few more themed vlogs, just to help me with choosing, because sometimes, even though I'm a mood reader, I do struggle to choose. And then if I've chosen a bunch of books and most of them have been mid or DNFs, then I start to doubt my abilities to choose books that I would enjoy. So yeah, I've got some ideas, and I'm going to be doing those, and it just makes it fun. It makes it like a game sometimes. Like, I get to play instead of just reading, which is still, I like reading. You know, this isn't a chore for me. This is my favorite hobby. It's how I spend all my free time pretty much, besides slinging tarot cards and crocheting stuff. So until the next reading vlog, stay well, Star Child.